Hi, and welcome to another edition of Then We Eat. It's dark and gray and dreary outside, so today would be a good day for some soup and some bread. So on today's episode, we'll be making cheddar jalapeno bread. We're going to start with 2.5 cups of flour. To that, we're going to add our yeast. You want to add 1 envelope of yeast. I buy my yeast in a jar. I use a lot of it, so it's easier for me to buy it that way. But 1 envelope works out to be 2 teaspoons plus 1/4 of a teaspoon. So in that goes. To that, we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I've got kosher salt here. 1/4 cup of chopped jalapeno and 1 cup of chopped grated cheese. I'm using a cheddar cheese today. You can use a sharp old cheese, you could use mozzarella cheese, whatever cheese that you like. And to that, we're going to add 1.25 cups of room temperature water. I'm just going to put my hook back in and we'll give that a mix. Okay, our dough is mixed. It's well incorporated. All of the ingredients have come off the side of the bowl. You know that it's well mixed, it's well incorporated. It should look a little bit like this. Now we're going to leave this for 20 minutes to rise. We'll see you after 20 minutes. So welcome back. Our bread has been sitting for 20 minutes. We're ready to move on to the next step. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our dough and we're going to put it on our cutting board. I'm not sure if I'm going to need flour on my cutting board or not. We're going to see. Your dough should still be sticky. I'm going to actually take a little bit of flour and I'm going to add a little tiny bit of flour. It's going to be very lightly dusted. And by very lightly, I mean very lightly. So our next step is to knead and fold the bread. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold the bread in half, flip it around, fold it again, and we're going to do that 2 or 3 times. We're going to let it rest for 15 minutes and we're going to do it again. And in the end, we will have done it 4 times. So it will take you about an hour to do this step. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to flip it over, stretch it, and fold it over itself. Then we're going to flip it 90 degrees. We're going to give it a stretch and fold it over itself. Give it a turn. We're going to stretch it and fold it over itself. And we'll do 1 more. So we'll stretch it out and fold it back on top of each other. Okay, so we're going to let that sit. I'm going to throw a little bit more flour down. We're going to let that sit for 15 minutes and we'll come back and we'll do that again. Welcome back. It's been 15 minutes. It's time for the next stretch and fold. So we're going to do this the same way. We're just going to give it a stretch and then we'll fold it over each other. We'll give it a turn, we'll give it a stretch, and we'll fold it over each other. Turn it, give it a stretch, fold it over each other. We'll do this 1 more time before we let this sit for 15 minutes. A nice stretch, and fold it over each other. Okay, so we're going to let this sit for another 15 minutes. We're going to give this stretch, folding and stretching, 2 more times. So for another 30 minutes. We won't show you this on camera, but we'll be back after we've done the final stretch and fold. So we'll see you in about 45 minutes. Welcome back. We've let the dough sit and rest for 3 of our pulls. Now we're ready to do our final stretch and pull, and then we'll let it rest for an hour. So let's do our final stretch and pull. 1. Stretch as far out as you can. Pull back over itself. You can see that the dough is getting light and fluffy. That's what's going to give you your airy, nice bread. Stretch and pull, And we'll do one more and then we'll let it sit for an hour. Stretch as far as you can. This one's not letting me stretch it. And fold. There we go. Okay, that was our final stretch and fold. Now we're gonna let it sit for an hour and just let it get airy. We'll see you after an hour. Welcome back. It's been an hour. Our dough has been sitting for an hour now. It's risen slightly. It's all nice and airy, and it's on to the next step. So the next thing we need to do is we need to stretch it out into a rectangle so that we can roll it up. Let's get stretching it out. It's going to be a little bit sticky. I'm going to see if I can stretch it out to the size of this mat that it's on. I might have needed to put some flour down. Let's see what kind of a rectangle we can get. Okay, I think I've got my dough stretched out. It's a nice rectangle shape. Now we're going to roll it up. It's a little sticky. That's what you want. Okay, so I've got a nice log going here. Now I'm just going to take this and I'm going to transfer it over to a parchment lined cookie sheet. And after I've got it on my cookie sheet, I'm going to let it rest again for another hour. Probably the easiest way to do this would be to flip it this way. We're going to let this sit for an hour, let it rise a little bit more, let the air get in there, and then we'll be back to bake it. So we'll see you in an hour. So welcome back. We've let our bread rise for an hour. It's looking really good, and we're ready for the next step. Our next step is to put some slashes in the top. We're going to use a razor blade, and we're just going to use a nice little slashing motion just to put a few slashes on the top. Try and get as deep as you can. I'm not sure if that's deep enough, but we'll see if that works. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to brush it with a little bit of water. This will give it a nice shiny coat and crispen up the bread. So a little bit of water on here. You don't want to add too much. You don't want your bread soggy. And now we're going to bake this in a 430-degree oven for about 35 minutes. We're going to check it after about 30 minutes to see where we're at. The other thing that you want to make sure is you have a little bit of water in the bottom half of your oven. So when you're cooking your bread, you want to put it 2/3 of the way up the oven and put your pan of water underneath it. This will make it nice and crispy when it's cooking. So into the oven it goes, and we'll see you in about 35 minutes. Welcome back, food fans. Our bread has been cooking. It's out of the oven. It's looking really good. Now it's time to try some. We're going to cut a little piece off and then we're going to try it. Oh, listen to that crunch. Most people wouldn't like to try the end piece. I prefer the heel. That's what the end piece is called. That's where you get the most crunch. So let's try this. So good. Nice flavor, jalapeno, the nice flavor of the cheddar, and of course, how can you go wrong with bread? This is so good. Thank you for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below. Would you make this bread? If you would there be something different that you would put in it? And don't forget, first we cook, then we eat. So good.